Chapter 21, Section 1. We're going to start this off by talking about the causes of World War I. We're going to actually go through 4 causes of World War I. The cause that we're going to start with is alliances. Alliances were definitely going to be one of the causes of World War I. Countries were promising aid to other countries if there was an attack. And a lot of this is going to come down to Germany wanting to isolate France. Germany and France had just fought a war called the Franco-Prussian War from 1870 to 1871. And Germany had beat France in the Franco-Prussian War. And as a result of this war, Germany had taken some French land. It's called Alsace and Lorraine. It's right there between Germany and France. Now, let's jump a few years into the future here. And Germany is going to start making alliances with France's neighbors, primarily Austria-Hungary and Italy. Germany is even going to make an alliance with Russia. But this alliance isn't going to stick around because Russia and Austria-Hungary can't get along. And although when you look at a map, you would think, hey, I want Russia on my side instead of just Austria-Hungary, when the purpose of it was basically against France, you wanted Austria-Hungary. That way you had that dividing line kind of right through the middle of Europe there. So Germany is going to abandon their alliance with Russia. And so you're going to end up with what is called the Triple Alliance. The Triple Alliance was Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. France obviously sees all this going on. France fears Germany's power and how much more power they're obtaining with these alliances. And so France is obviously going to talk to Russia. When Germany drops Russia, France says, hey, Russia, we'll take you. We'll join with you. France also is going to join with Great Britain. Britain did not like the growing sea power of Germany. Britain and Germany were also rivals in Africa for colonies, so it made sense to Britain to join with France. But France has to deal with the fact that Britain and Russia don't necessarily get along. But in this case, Tsar Nicholas II of Russia is going to realize Germany is growing stronger and stronger. And if Russia can't make this alliance with Britain and France work out, Russia's going to be left out there by themselves. So Tsar Nicholas II is going to kind of make sure this tension does not ruin this alliance here. And so you're going to end up with what's called the Triple Entente. France, Britain, and Germany. Wrong. France, Britain, and Russia. I was looking ahead in notes. Actually, the Triple Entente with France, Britain, and Russia is going to be more of a friendly understanding rather than strictly a military alliance. But if you're Germany, you don't necessarily see the difference here. Germany sees this as a very hostile alliance, especially because Germany looks at these 3 countries and realizes they're surrounded. You've got Russia on the east, you got Britain and France on the west. And so Germany feels very threatened by this alliance. Now, war is going to be avoided for a long time, but there's always going to be this risk with these alliances here. A risk of a chain reaction. A risk that countries, knowing they have friends and backup, might take more risks. Otto von Bismarck, in 1879, is going to make a quote. He's going to make a statement about what was going on in Europe. And he says, the great powers of our time are like travelers, unknown to one another, whom chance has brought together in a carriage. They watch each other, and when one of them puts his hand in his pocket, his neighbor gets ready his own revolver in order to be able to fire the first shot. it talks about that tension. The carriage they're all in is Europe, and they're watching each other. And if somebody so much as makes a little bit of a move, they're not going to wait for him to make the move. The tension is there. Alliances were one of the causes of World War I. The second cause we'll talk about is militarism. Militarism is the glorification of military strength. Let me give you a quick little history of Europe. Historically in Europe, the way it went down was large European countries would try to overpower small European countries. And if two countries had a dispute, they would settle it on the battlefield. And so what you saw were countries engaging in an arms race, trying to make sure they had the larger army, the more powerful weapons. Because if you know that if you're weak, you risk being taken over, if you know that all conflicts are settled on the battlefield, you better make sure you had a strong military. And so militaries were being built up all over Europe. And a country's first defense was first strike. If it so much looked like the other side was going to do something, you did something about it. When you have countries engaging in this level of militarism, there is little to no chance that diplomacy will ever have a chance. Everything was being laid out, so battlefield was the only place you could settle any disputes. Militarism was definitely a cause of World War I. The third cause we're going to mention was imperialism. Imperialism was a cause of World War I. We just spent an entire chapter talking about imperialism in chapter 20. You can obviously see how if you have countries looking to expand, there's only two ways it can happen. Either you get more colonies or you take your borders and you make your country bigger. If you're expanding, somebody else is losing land. Obviously, this is going to cause an issue and war can break out. Imperialism was definitely a cause of World War I. The fourth cause that we're going to talk about is nationalism. Nationalism would be defined as feelings of devotion to and pride in one's own country. Extreme nationalists become very quick to answer and less likely to use reason. You look at all these different groups in Europe. The French nationalists, they wanted Alsace and Lorraine back. The German nationalists want to make Germany's borders even bigger. The Russian pan-Slavists, they want Russia to rule all the Slavs of Eastern Europe, which especially if you look down into southeastern Europe there's a lot of Slavic people there. An area of Europe where there was particularly strong nationalist feeling was an area called the Balkans. The Balkan Peninsula, that highlighted green area down there. The Balkan Peninsula was nicknamed the powder keg of Europe. Tensions were so high in the Balkans, it was like a powder keg. One little spark could set the whole thing off. When you look at the history of the Balkans had been controlled by the Ottoman Empire, what is today in place of Turkey. In the Balkan Peninsula, there were four main ethnic groups. You had the Albanians, the Greeks, the Romanians, and the Slavs. Each of those groups want their independence. They want to be ruled by themselves, the Albanians by Albanians, the Greeks by Greeks, the Romanians by Romanians, the Slavs by Slavs. Austria-Hungary is going to occupy this area called Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina was Slavic. Serbia Serbia thought Bosnia should be part of them. The people of Bosnia were Slavic, the people of Serbia were Slavic. It only makes sense if they were part of them. Those people weren't Austrian, they weren't Hungarian. And Serbia was gaining more and more power in the Balkans, and this was starting to threaten Austria-Hungary's control of their areas in the Balkans. Nationalism was definitely one of the causes of World War I. So in review, you've got 4 causes to World War I. You've got alliances, militarism, imperialism, and nationalism.